Welcome to the next episode of the worst teams in baseball. No, we're working from the worst up. Like we talked last episode, Scully has his team. He did the power rankings basically. We went off his because ours was close. And the next team that we're going to talk about tonight is the Washington Nationals. The difference between this team and the team that we just talked about, the Nationals won a championship in 2019. This team had a team. They've spent money before. They've built up great young stars. I think they knew the writing was on the wall where their records were, and they knew they had to get pieces and build because the way of the past of buying through free agency is not the way to win anymore. It's changing. We'll talk about this in the future. We can talk about this now. Houston, Houston got basically let Carlos Correa walk. Apparently, the worst ankle any medical examiner has ever seen in their lives. Two of them. Twins don't care. We'll talk about that. But we're able to replace him and get a World Series MVP shortstop in Jeremy Pena to replace him and not miss a beat. That's impressive. That is something that has not been talked about as much. How that transition happened. They lost a platinum glove shortstop and replaced him and won and got better. So
probably another platinum glove shortstop.
Correct. Hate Houston. We'll always hate Houston. Respect to Houston. Trash cans galore. Listen, what I will say is this team is one of the smarter teams. They knew how bad in shape they were, and they had future stars. Like, they had Soto. We'll talk about him, but they had him. They knew they had to get rid of him because he wasn't signing long term. He didn't want to play for a rebuild, and it was going to take a couple of years around. Even though that is a guy you build the team around, he didn't want to sit there and wait because he has a championship now. He's tasted a championship. He wants a championship again. So they knew the writing was on the wall. Similar to the Red Sox and Mookie Betts, they knew the writing was on the wall. Now that trade and the Versus trade, I think, are miles apart. Miles apart. We got fleeced. But they had to pay for 2 more years of control for Soto. He was gone in like 6 months.
The large anvil called David Price didn't really help either.
Sure. We'll talk about that with the Phillies coming up with Dave Dombrowski, and like great for the build here and now, not great for the future, which Philly will feature at some point down their line. But we're talking about a team that won 2019, doing through the rebuild. Still same manager. I was going to ask you before we started.
Yeah, Davey Martinez is still there, and look, he's a really good manager. I mean, he doesn't deserve to be stuck in a situation like this. He's a much better manager than that. He was part of the Cubs team that won it all in 2016. Little fun fact, actually, there's like both Martinez and Brandon Hyde with the Orioles were both on that Cubs team. So we're now seeing that Joe Madden managerial tree start to slowly build.
Joe Madden still free agent? Not been signed? Yeah, Angels wasted him. Great talent. Hated him in Tampa, but he's a great talent. So we're gonna talk about Washington. We're not in this won't the we're gonna talk about what they lost and what they gained. Even their gains, which one of these I just saw for the first time. I didn't look over this list. It kind of just makes me want to rip my hair out, but I don't have any good things. But this doesn't even count like the Scherzer and Trey Turner stuff that they did last season. That they still have prospects from that have I think yet to make the big leagues, or they're made it and they're still working their way through.
There's a pretty good crop of talents coming up through the minors. When you have, if you think about those trades they made, and you start with the Scherzer trade, the 2 guys they got in that trade, Josiah Gray, the pitcher, and the catcher's name, can't remember his name. Keeper Ruiz. Both of those guys were mainstays all of last season, and they shouldered a lot of the crap that team had to deal with. And props to those two for being able to go through a whole season of that. You have Cade Cavalli as well, top 100 prospect. He'll be coming up soon. But if you look at the acquisitions that they made in the offseason, it's like they took all of these like these failed former top prospects and are trying to build a somewhat stable team. You have Dominic Smith,
Yeah.
who was this big Mets guy for a while, and he just never panned out. You have Heimer Candelario, former Cubs prospect. There was a debate, believe it or not, in the Cubs farm system, was he going to be better than Chris Bryant? And then you have Jeter Downs, who we know very well. We'll
Yep.
always remember the walk off he had against the Yankees last year, but um, overall, it just doesn't seem. I mean, they were in talks with a lot of other semi big name free agents, but they were. It just seems like they're just hitting the full reset and are just focusing on developing all of these young guys they have coming up.
Yeah. I think with their young, and again, this is going to be a team. This is going to be very similar, I believe. If the again, we hold prospects to such a high regard in baseball, good or bad. Speaking of Jeter Downs, like that was like a number. That was like a when we didn't extend Bogarts, we were waiting to. We still didn't extend Devers at that point. We took a lot of took a lot of shots when Jeter got DFA'd because that just proved right then and there that the Mookie Betts trade was a failure. I think majority of people overall see that trade as a failure anyways. And if he had to go back, I think he does that trade still. So I don't think Jeter Downs is going to be a bad guy. I just don't think he was ever going to rise to the level of being that shortstop. But when you get the one as advertised, you see the raw talent, you're saying this could be it. What happens is they fall through, they don't get over the hump, they can't catch fire, and they're sometimes just double A and triple A guys. Not saying that this is the perfect scenario for Jeter Downs. If he's ever going to find it, he's going to find it in the Washington Nationals, where he can play every day. He can try his luck and do what he wants. I think Dom Smith, overall, not a bad guy. He just didn't get to play because he didn't have a spot on that team. The team is just loaded with players, never going to play. Is Luke Voigt still a free agent?
No, I believe he signed somewhere.
Okay.
He definitely signed somewhere. But back to the point of Downs, if he's not going to be the everyday shortstop because they have a guy called C.J.
Right.
Abrams who came over
Right.
in the deal with San Diego, who's going to be their everyday shortstop?
Oh,
And
right. I think. Well, he can play second, right? Who's your second baseman? Good question. See, you don't
yeah,
know. That's
exactly.
possible.
That's the case with
I see. I
a lot
forgot
of
when
their
we pulled
positions
up that
here.
graphic. I forgot when we pulled up that graphic. That doesn't even include everybody that Juan Soto trade came. Trey Turner, Max Scherzer. That's the talent that they've already had, and to get Abrams in that deal was perfect.
Abrams
Um.
and Mackenzie Gore as well. He
All
was the
right.
centerpiece of that package.
I know Mackenzie Gore and Gray. If they both actually pan out, that and
He's going to be a
Gore
scary
was Gore
in
was
a couple
pitching
years.
and Gore was pitching in the major leagues up like at times last season, right?
He had made I think 4 or 5 appearances in the majors before he got shipped.
Again, we'll talk about this when it comes to the Padres. If you're not able to re-sign him, I think you're I think you're gonna feel like you gave up a lot. You gave up a lot. But if you sign him, he's worth a lot. So I think those
Mhm.
pan out. I think they're fair. No contract has come yet, but the Padres are willing to like spend like nobody's business. I felt it firsthand this season, um, in a ridiculous move. But again, I digress. The Nationals, the game is they're fixable, yes, and they're doing everything they can to be fixable. Is it going to be this season? No. Is it going to be next season? They're going to get closer. But like their moves this season, off season, they already made their moves. They already made their moves. They're going to make it through the draft. They're going to make it with more free agent pops. I could see them coming out of the woodworks the next couple years once they get closer to actually snag a free agent or two. They're going to make those moves. They want to win a championship. They've tasted the title. They're going to get it. They're going to go back.
Yeah. If I were a Nationals fan, I'd be excited about going to games this season. A,
Yeah.
it's going to be cheap. B, not a lot of people are going to be there. And C, you get to see a bunch of really exciting young players just have fun out there. I mean, it's an amalgamation of guys who were in deep prospect pools, and now they get to have their own starting abilities with a major league club.
And I mean, everybody talks every year about the AL East. It's the NL East this year. I'll just say that there are 3 teams that are contending for champion. Contending. The Marlins are young and still got fantastic pitching to go along with it, and the Nationals are up and coming. That division, if you're a fan and get to watch the Mets, the Phillies, and the Braves come into town for cheap tickets, it's going to be great. So is it fixable? Yes, this team will be back on the rise at some point. I think they have the talent to get us back. MVPs. Hubert Reese is mine. The catcher. I think he's gonna take a step forward as what he was. He's gonna have more support in that lineup. He's going to have more bats around him than it was just him, especially after the Juan Soto trade, and it's just lamb to the slaughter. Like everybody could pitch their nastiest pitch to him because everybody else around him couldn't hit. So I think he's got a shot to take a massive step forward. That's my MVP. Who's yours?
Mine is Josiah Gray. I think he is starting pitcher 1 on that team when Steven Strasburg decides to be if Steven Strasburg ever decides to be healthy again, he might get bumped to number 2. But yeah, Gray, until Gore or Cavalli shines and steps up consistently on the mound at the major league level, he is going to be the guy in the rotation. He's going to be the pace setter for that rotation. It'll be it was the case last year for the most part. It's because Corbin, Strasburg, they have fallen apart. So
Right.
who else is it going to be? And he stepped up in a big way last year. So I think right now he is their most valuable guy.
Yeah. And then my player to watch is I think I don't know if we have the exact same. Mine's CJ Abrams.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah. I think if there's anybody to watch on this team that just got traded that's going to have a full season in that team, it's going to be CJ. But again, this is one of those prospects. You know how you've heard in baseball, you've heard the Yankees hold on to theirs so tightly. We're holding on to Meyer. There's so many of these young shortstops that are coming up that are as good as advertised. But like when it comes to the saying, are they going to rise to that superstar level? Again, you gave up Gore and Abrams for Soto. Soto's proven talent. Hopefully, these two pan out to be those players like a Turner and Scherzer. If those come close or come equal to either one of those guys, cool. But you got to get there and you got to see that. And I am excited to watch Abrams play. I don't know how many national games I'll tune into this season, but what we're talking again, a big thing about our show is we're going to tie sports betting into it. We're going to have competition between me and Scully weekly to see how we fit on our games. We're not going to bet on the same games. We're going to pick our own games, basically. If we find up on the same game, we'll find up on the same game. And it's different props. Like if you want to have no runs first inning, you want to have player hits, whatever we want to do, we can do, but we're betting against each other, basically. But this one is not a bet against. This is the Washington Nationals 59.5, same as Oakland. Do they get over it? I think yes. I
Mhm.
think this is an easy yes. I think they are a team that gets up. The only thing that hurts them is they have to play in the East. They have to play against those tough teams. But at the end of the day, they have to play less games against the East than they had the last season to play against them because of the new rules. So they'll play lesser teams around the world, around the league. They may I think everybody has to play like somebody in some way. I don't know how it all works, but
Yeah.
I haven't looked. But we're playing way more teams than we've ever played before. That we never get to play except every 3 years. They're both minus 14, so 114, so it can go either way. I think it's a hammer. Yes, I think they had it. I think that's an
Yeah,
easy
I
cash
think
for
this
money.
this is a team that can, I think, win 65 games and feel
Yeah,
pretty good about themselves going in the future. And I could also see a situation where this is a team that if you're Atlanta, New York, or Philly, you're playing a late September series against this team, you could easily drop 2 or 3 to this team and be absolutely hosed in your wild card standing.
yeah, absolutely. And they're a little bit better than to win the East. 15,000 plus 15,000. So you want to put $1 on them. Lightning strikes, bunch of injuries. Who knows?
If you
I
have a
would not
dollar
be.
in your pocket that's crinkly and maybe a little bit torn, I would just like slide that and be like, hey,
I would
never
take
know.
that crinkly. I would take that crinkly dollar out of my pocket and then put it back in my pocket before I'd ever bet on the Washington Nationals to beat any of those teams in the East. Just my personal opinion. But hey, Marlins are high too, so we'll talk about that at a later time. But is this team savable? I think we've addressed that for this topic. Yes, and I think
Mhm.
it's going to be of the struggling bottom teams. This is going to be the team to watch, like a team to watch. I honestly think they're better than some of the other teams that we're going to be talking about, like in youth. But this season, I think 29 is the correct like.
They have more upside than a lot. I would say they have more upside than several of the teams ranked above them in terms
Right,
of where they could be 5 years from now.
100%. Okay, I want you to like, comment, subscribe. We're breaking down all the teams one by one. If you've watched this one and you didn't watch the first one, that was the Oakland Athletics. It's all right. If you didn't watch it, neither did their fans. But the next one up, I believe. Oh, I'm going to get this all wrong. No, the next one is the Cincinnati Reds. We'll be talking Cincinnati Reds. Woo woo, the big red machine. No. But like, comment, subscribe, Over the Wall Pod on Twitter. We'll be actively live tweeting games, watching Garrett Cole cry when he doesn't get his way. When the Red Sox make me cry.
Pete's sake.
When the Mets, when the Mets, um, uh, make Frank the Tank lose it. We'll talk about all that stuff this season. So follow us over there, and we'll be Monday, Friday is what we're aiming for. So check us out there. We'll see you in the next one.